I don't know if you guys know this or not, but every man in this room, when you get married, this is a secret that maybe the women don't know about, but I'll let you in on a little bit here. When you get married, you're taken into a room and they give you two options. They say you can either be really into smoking meats in your backyard or you can get really into World War II history. I chose, luckily, smoking meats. And so after I left the Air Force, I joined my mom and dad here in this picture and started a little barbecue restaurant. That was my dream, right? So many of you in this room are the tacticians, the doers of the thing. And so that's what we did. But as soon as I got in it, all of a sudden I realized, like, wow, it's a lot harder than I thought it would be. You know, there's no customers in front of that tent. You got to figure out how to drive all that traffic, right? So eventually we figured it out just well enough. And one of the things I learned was that you have to have an actual brick and mortar store in the restaurant business if you want to make some money. And so I didn't have any money. We didn't have any grants. I didn't have the Patriot Boot Camp at the time to, Ray wasn't around to coach me up on how to tell stories or how to get any sort of funding. So we picked the restaurant we could afford. And it was a little small place on this 4-lane highway. And you can see the restaurant in this picture, but not really, right? There's a 4-lane highway. It's one of those things where you're doing 70 miles an hour down the road. It's a 55-mile-an-hour zone. And I picked a location trifecta. This is like a shady hotel that I've watched all kind of weird things happen in the parking lot out front. You guys have all been in gas stations, so you know what happens with that. And then there's a liquor store on the other side of that. It definitely sounds like a place you want to bring your family for a little dinner, right? Late at night when the lights go out. There it is. Now you can see it. So there's no impulse buying there, right? And all of a sudden, this is what my dining room looked like all the time. It's brutal. You know, you have this dream, you start doing it, and then, you just look at this all the time. And you're like, I have a good product, I have a good service. We knew that from the tent. You know, we had a lot of people that came in and really loved what we did. But now they weren't coming here, even though they said to my face when we were at the tent, oh yeah, we'll come support you. And then when it was time for the chickens to come home to roost, right, they disappeared on us. And then I figured out this stat, that 50% of businesses close within the first 5 years of starting, and the number one reason they close is due to issues with cash flow. This is my mom, and she was the heart and soul of the restaurant. Mom, she came up with all the recipes, and it was my job to sell it. And she came to me one day and just was like, I don't understand why we're not busier. Like, we have a good product. And so what am I supposed to tell her? So I got busy. I'd wake up early, I'd go to bed late, started studying, trying to learn everything I could about marketing, because that wasn't my background. I dropped out of college. I wasn't a marketer in the Air Force. Like, I read a few books, maybe listened to a few podcasts, and this was really all I knew about marketing from what I had seen in the world, right? This was 2014. So I started trying stuff. I spent like $200 on print ads on the back of a Kroger receipt. That was gonna drive you to the restaurant. We bought really cheap TV ads that was just leftover inventory that I'm pretty sure ran at 3 a.m. Behind a Sarah McLachlan Save the Dogs commercial. I bought, if any of you guys have ever been pitched, I bought those coupon books, where they slide my little flyer in with 1,000 other ones, and I thought that was going to be the thing that drove people to the middle of nowhere. It wasn't. We even tried radio. We tried everything. But then one day, I had a salesperson come into the restaurant, and they had a pitch that I was ready for. It was a billboard. And she told me for a 3-month contract, for $2,500 a month, she was going to put my logo and my company up on this side of the road on this massive digital billboard that was right outside of a Sam's Club that did, I don't know how many thousands of visitors a day. And the road we were on, which the billboard, if you remember from that picture, it was just like a mile down the road. And I'd been on enough road trips and been suckered in by enough billboards to know oh, this must be the thing. And so I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going all in on this. And I wrote the biggest marketing check I'd ever written. And then I sat at the register, because I didn't have money to pay staff yet. Who has that? I sat at the register every single day. And every time a new customer would come in, I would always, be very, very gracious, because you should be. But then I would ask them, how'd you hear about us? Expecting it was going to be this amazing billboard that I just paid all this money for, which to me, even today, $2,500 is a lot of money. People came in, nobody said the billboard. In fact, over the course of a whole month, 3 people said they saw the billboard and that's why they came in. Our plates averaged $15, $16. That's $45 of revenue I drove off of my great, awesome marketing plan. What I didn't know then, but I do know now, is that what a lot of us do in this room, and it's not our fault, we're busy doing the thing, we're good at the thing, but now all of a sudden you're the chief everything officer, right? You are the CEO of your own small business. You now have to also be a marketer, which means you have to come up with a marketing plan. And most of us do what I did because we don't know what we're doing, and we just throw spaghetti against the wall and see what sticks. And there's exceptions to the rule. Like, some people get lucky and find a thing and it works for them, and I love that for them. But that's not how my story worked, and I would imagine if I talked to enough of you in here today, that's probably not how your stories worked. So we've got to get a plan. We cannot just do random stuff. And there's way more competition out there than you think. Like, we are in the attention economy today. You have got to find a way to get your brand in front of people. You could have the coolest thing in the world. I had the pleasure to talk to so many of you today during the mentor sessions, and you guys are doing some really cool things. But it's kind of like if a tree falls in the forest and nobody's around to hear it. That's basically what you're doing with your businesses today if you don't have a well-rounded marketing plan. And there's volume out there. From an attention for competition standpoint, 6 million searches on Google every single minute of the day across the world. 140 million reels are viewed on Facebook and Instagram every minute. 251 million emails are sent every single minute. And 16,000 videos are uploaded to TikTok every single minute. That means in the 5 minutes I've been up here talking, this has happened 5 times. And you think, maybe if I just buy one little billboard, if I do one little social media post, or I send one email every 10 years, I'm going to grow my business. It's tough. And on top of that, the total market for ad spend online right now is projected to be around $734 billion. That's Facebook ads, Google ads, Amazon ads, every annoying display ad that shows up when I try to just look up a recipe. Like, dear God. I'm not real smart. And I try to learn from people like you that are smarter than me and have experienced more things than I have. And I came across this Ted Turner quote right in the middle of this problem. Early to bed, early to rise, work like hell, which I don't think any of us have a problem with the first 3 parts of this quote. My problem was the 4th part, and advertise. I didn't want to overly promote myself. I felt weird about it. It felt like I was being braggadocious or not humble or like not a team player like so many of us here in the military were trained to do. Like, that individualism is beat out of you from day one in boot camp, right? But it's a belief that we kind of have to come to terms with living with as military veterans. Like, you've got to learn how to promote yourself. And so we did it. I spent tons of money on courses. I bought every marketing book I could find on Amazon. I listened to every podcast that even remotely had something to do with marketing. And slowly, over the course of a couple years, I found a plan that worked. And it really started to work for us. We went from that really crappy gas station to a really nice location where I never saw one overdose, which was great. We even got the chance to open a second location, which was incredible. Then we were starting to get featured in all these different publications around town. And even the VA came in and did a piece on us for their veteran entrepreneurship stuff. Awesome stuff that I did not think was possible 2 years beforehand, sitting in that empty dining room. On top of that, my mom started to get featured because we branded her as Mama Lyles, like she was our figurehead. She was featured on different shows, and one of them was the Big Bad Barbecue Brawl on the Cooking Channel. And on top of that, the coolest thing that happened was that we were on this show called The Prophet on CNBC because a producer had seen what we were doing on social media. This was one of the coolest experiences of my life to get on TV like this. Like, don't let anybody lie to you. TV is fun. And I got to go work for Marcus for 6 months on a bunch of his different brands, helping with marketing. So I say all that not to brag, but to say that, like, I was where you were, with a business idea. I happened to be good at barbecue. I sucked at everything else when it came to running the business, especially the marketing piece. But once I figured it out and I got my really great product in front of the right people, all of a sudden things started to work out. I was a little nervous though when we started High Beam 4 years ago, because maybe I was just one of those exceptions. Maybe I just got lucky. Maybe I hit gold and that was all it was going to be. But then we started to see hundreds of brands, millions of dollars in ad spend, and we've driven right around $1 billion in revenue for all the different brands we worked on over our careers.
Quick note here before we get back to the video. If you're running meta ads for your e-com brand, I've got something that might save you $10,000 this month. My agency, High Beam, has audited hundreds of e-com brands accounts, and we keep seeing the same 10 mistakes over and over and over and over and over again. And these mistakes, they're so small, but they're killing your meta ads performance. You would think they'd be rookie mistakes, but I saw a $10 million brand making these exact mistakes on an audit just last week. Tens of thousands of dollars lit on fire, for no reason. So we at Highbeam made a meta ads checklist for your ecom brand. It's free. It'll take you 10 minutes to read. You'll find out the 10 most common mistakes we see in meta ads audits right now and how we would fix them if we took over your account. We're talking the one objective you have to use on Meta and why the others waste your money, how to spot bad data before it ruins your ROAS, the reason your creative used to work and how to get it back on track. You or your current agency could just be casually lighting everything on fire without even knowing it. So click the link below, grab the Meta Ads checklist. It's time to stop guessing and start scaling. Back to the video.
Everybody has a unique business. Everybody has different exceptions to things. But for the most part, the stuff I'm going to show you today will get you 80% of the way there. You're all smart, talented people. Your job is to take what I show you today and take it the rest of the 20% and make it work for your specific industry. And this is it right here. We call it the marketing flywheel. Now, I like a flywheel metaphor more than a funnel metaphor because a funnel is very linear. You just come in at the top, you go down to the bottom, and then it's over. And your job is to constantly fill the funnel. Versus, if we have a flywheel mentality, we spin it once one day, and we spin it once the next day, and just over time, that thing is heavy and builds and moves and spins and spins and spins, and now all of a sudden, you have a brand that you've built that people love. Like, I still get messages to this day, and the barbecue restaurant's been gone for 6 years, about how much people loved it. It's crazy what kind of sticking power this thing has once it's built up its momentum. So it starts with tribal branding at the top. I'm not going to go into that in my presentation. We have a session tomorrow morning with Pete. It's going to be great. He'll talk to you about branding. Then we have the influence funnel. Funnel still is part of it. We've got to get people to not know us, to purchase. And so that's what we're going to go through today. We're going to touch a little bit on customer retention because once you have a customer, you should probably keep them. You know, what are you doing to actually keep them and keep them in the world? And then we have word of mouth marketing. So raise a hand. What's the number one way you get business now? Is it word of mouth marketing? Is that? Yeah, right. That's all of us. And what word of mouth marketing means is that you have product market fit. That means that you have done something and you're charging a rate that is valuable to the marketplace. And it's so valuable that people are willing to market your business for you for free. But we have a couple tactics we'll go through that hopefully incentivizes people to where they'll refer you a little bit more on the back end. So when we start meeting with people at Highbeam, one of the first questions we always get, especially if it's your first time working with an agency or doing marketing, is how long would this actually take? And I get the question because, again, cash flow is a major concern. I'm spending all this money with you. When's the money coming back? And that means you may have a sales problem and not a marketing problem. You may need to just be doing more door-to-door, cold calling, cold emailing, and that kind of thing. Like, a marketing plan is really about this pie graph here. 95% of the market does not want what you do right now. That doesn't mean they won't at some point. That's what the 5% is. Everybody tries to go straight to this 5% because they're ready to buy right now. And that's really what salespeople's job is, to just hunt through all the world and find this 5%. And once they find it, that's why we see like 1,000 cold calls from sales teams and all of a sudden they find the one that actually works. That's why. Marketing's job is to build a relationship with this 95% right here. At the last cohort, I got a question about what's the difference between B2B and B2C? Does this work for B2B and B2C? The barbecue restaurant was a business to consumer business, B2C. The reason why it was faster in that world is that you get hungry 3 times a day, which means my sales cycle is that much shorter. So I can probably get you, what's that, 14 times a week? I got a chance to get you to come in and try it. Versus in the B2B space, when's the last time you changed agencies or banks or insurance providers or anything like that? It's a much longer sales cycle, much bigger contracts, but the humans that are inside of the businesses we market to now are the same people with the same triggers and everything else. So the same tactics work, they just take a lot longer than you would think in a B2B business to start to get results. I know it's working for us because I've had 3 or 4 people since I've been here come up to me and say, hey, I've been seeing the content you're putting out on YouTube or LinkedIn or whatever. And that's how I can see that our B2B stuff is actually working. It's important for you to know that the best products don't win. It's the best known products that win. And that's a tough reality for us to live in. It was a tough reality for my mom to even accept because she put so much that South Georgia love, sprinkling into every recipe. And it was personal. Business is personal. Don't let anybody ever tell you it's not personal. But this is the most helpful thing you can figure out in your business. You have to become the best known product for the problem you solve, or service, or government contractor, or whatever. The other question I always get is, how much should you budget for marketing? The answer is as much as you freaking can. Like, there's no downside to having more influence in the market. You know, a good band to try to land in between is, on the low end, 5% of your top line sales. If you're trying to really, really grow, 25%. I mean, somewhere in that range. And a lot of this depends, again, on industry, you know, cash flow, whatnot, but you probably need to be spending more than you are now. That's great, Chandler. I love it. I love that, you know, we're going to do all that. I've got the budget, all the things. Like, how do we actually do it? So I call it the influence funnel. And why do I call it the influence funnel? Because you can't get anybody to do anything without influence. Like, you have to convince them from a state of not knowing you, to trusting you, to paying you. Like, you've got to influence them across all of those stages. And I broke it down into a really simple formula, because I'm not that smart. I try to keep it simple. So it's attention multiplied by emotion is going to equal the amount of influence you have. So we start with emotion. And the reason we start with emotion is because attention's kind of easy. I can buy a billboard, I can buy a radio ad, I can buy things that just put my logo out there, but until I connect an emotion to it, you're just going to ignore it. And so let's start with this. How many of you, like, what would you pay for this cooler? It's a styrofoam cooler, sell it at a gas station, just shout out some numbers.
$1.50?
$3, $2, yeah, perfect. Last one, yeah. Yeah, we're talking supply and demand, and we were really out of my depth there if we're going economics. I can't do that. But what about now? Oh, now I'm selling a Yeti branded throwaway styrofoam cooler. $1.50.
I'm still sticking.
There is something to it though, right? You see the logo and all of a sudden you're like, oh man, maybe that is a nice Yeti cooler. Maybe I've always needed a styrofoam cooler. You think I'm crazy though? This is a silver tumbler that I found on Amazon last week when I put this together, $13. Same product is $35 from Yeti. That is a 269% difference in price.
But it keeps it cold.
I bet this one does the same thing.
You'd be surprised.
I bet it does the same thing. The point is that humans, we buy with emotion and we justify with logic, which is what you just did. No, Chandler, I paid $35 for the Yeti because it keeps it colder longer. It's a pretty purple color. I see what you're doing. I get it. The purple, yeah, it's emotional, right? You have a thing about the purple color, all of a sudden you want it, and you'd love to do it. Even more so, how many of you guys remember the Pepsi challenge for a while back, right? If you haven't heard of that story, basically, Pepsi has this brilliant marketing strategy where they're going to do a one-to-one logical comparison between their product being better than Coca-Cola. And they were right. When it was a blind taste test, vast majority of people preferred the taste of Pepsi to Coca-Cola. Funny enough, though, a few years later, another psychologist comes along. He wants to rerun the experiment to see if the results are repeatable. He does it. To begin with, they don't know what's in which cup. Pepsi repeats the results, big time winner. The next phase of the experiment, though, he tells them, this is Coke, this is Pepsi. Like 75% of people chose the Coke option. It's only the emotion. Coke had done a way better job connecting their brand to the right emotion to make you choose that product over the other one. But why is emotion so important? So this is Antonio Damasio. He had a client come into his psychology practice one day. This guy's life was falling apart. He had a traumatic brain injury, which essentially made it to where he couldn't feel any sort of emotion about anything, which almost you would think would be a superpower. But what ended up happening in this guy's life is that he became a hoarder. He stopped being able to function at his job because he couldn't make decisions. The fact is that without emotions, we really have a hard time figuring out what we're supposed to do. It's that gut feeling we all talk about. That is that emotional trigger. The truth is you're making 35,000 decisions every single day. The scary part is you're aware of 70 of them, which is 0.2%. That's crazy. Crazy. Great marketing, what we do, we come in and we wake people up with one of the 6 core emotions. Because if I just put your logo, what is this, advanced hydronics? If I just put that up on the screen right now, there's nothing about it, right? It's just a name. And like maybe I know what it is, maybe I don't, but like without the emotional trigger to it, it's just another ad that I'm going to ignore, because like it's so funny like how fast we can all scroll away on social media and we realize we're looking at an ad, Unless the ad triggers an emotion, then all of a sudden you might watch it. So what are the 6 core emotions? The first one is anger. So this is the 1984 famous Apple ad where the big brother face is yelling down at the hero running, and so we're all mad at the face. It's one of the most famous ads of all time because of the emotion it triggered at the beginning. And then the back end emotion of like satisfaction and happiness when she chucks that hammer through his face. Then you have joy. This dude still gets me every time. Old Spice was basically a dead legacy brand for P&G until they put this ad campaign on it. Same product, not reformulated with some crazy new specs. Same thing. All they did was make people feel this specific emotion around it. Surprise ads are great too. This is one of the first famous internet ads for Dollar Shave Club. Basically, every 5 seconds in this video, something else insane happens. I think at one point a bear shows up and throws something at him, and it's just nuts. And if you haven't seen it, you should watch it. Sadness. This is the arms of an angel girl shows up at 3 a.m. when I'm asleep and the TV's on too loud and she's singing. And by the end of that commercial, I think that maybe if I spent $1 a day, I could save every dog on the planet. And then there's love. This was a recent commercial from the Farmer's Dog, which is a online pet food company. And this guy on the left was, if you watch the whole commercial, he's a referee. And he blows a call, and the home team's just killing him for it. And he's just getting hammered, and you feel bad for him. And then all of a sudden, he gets home, and the dog doesn't care. The dog just shows him love, and then you feel love about that. And it's one of the best commercials I've seen this year. And then you have the fear emotion, your brain on drugs. Everything you do in marketing has to cause an emotion. Like great marketers wake people up with an emotion. Like that's what we've got to do. So the other side of the formula is the one everybody's always interested in. This is the tactic-heavy side of the formula. It's the attention. How do we get more attention in today's marketplace? Because we have a ton of options. You have email, print, social media is on here, TikTok's still on here for some reason, TV, podcast, YouTube. People's attention is spread so thinly now, it's insane. And with limited budgets like we all have in this room, like nobody in this room I don't think is from the Fortune 500. We don't have millions and millions of dollars to spend on advertising. Like how do you actually pick which one you're going to go with? So we need a plan. And that's what the influence funnel does. This is going to give you the biggest bang for your buck from a time spent marketing your business. So we'll start with social media. How do you make social media content and break through all the noise today? So to understand where social media is today, we have to understand how it started. Back in the day, media was by these big cable companies. They basically came out with original programming, and they had pilot season every year, and they sold you the ad breaks in between, and then that was basically it. Like it was a non-competitive market, that was all there was. So guys like Robert Irvine come around, he's got a show, super popular, and you sell the ad break for it. And so I was obsessed with this show, and I was like, oh, maybe we can do that for our stuff. And then I started to realize the internet was a really big deal. It had broken the traditional media model. People spend an average of like 2.5 hours a day on the different social media platforms. It's crazy. Like YouTube is somewhere around, the users on that platform specifically are like 2 hours a day. TikTok is like 2 hours a day. Instagram, Facebook are around half an hour a day. Now there's super users that do more and sparse users that do less, but those are the averages. And then people talk to me about LinkedIn, especially for B2B, and I'm like, people spend 12 minutes a day on that platform, and most of them are looking for a new job. So you got to think through that stuff. So I was like, I'm going to rip off Robert Irvine. I'm going to make my mom into her own cooking channel celebrity. So we branded her Mama Lyles, and we started shooting these cooking videos in her house. And it's funny, my dad hated this idea at first. He was like, what are you doing? My dad was in the Air Force for 20 plus years. He was a recruiter for most of that time before the internet came around. So he was real old school. He thought we should be out going door to door to businesses to sell more catering. Especially me, he thought we should go, he tried at one point to go door to door selling pulled pork sandwiches. And I don't think that's I respect the hustle though, but I was going to try a different way. And we did it. We did it consistently for month after month after month. And all the while, my dad's just sort of sitting on the sideline looking at me like, you are a goober. And for a long time, it felt that way because I couldn't really see the results of what was happening. Until one day, we're working at our new location down on Clay's Mill. And these two girls, this was down in Lexington, Kentucky, by the way, where the University of Kentucky is based. And these two college students, they come in. and they see my mom, and me and my dad are standing behind the register next to her, and they look at her and they go, "Are you Mama Lyles?" And she was, "Yeah." And my dad's face was like, "What?" And then the weirdest thing happened. They go, "Can we get a selfie with you?" And he was a believer from that, because that's influence. Like, that's getting attention, causing emotions, and all of a sudden you're hooked in. Because we understood that, like, nothing really changed about the model. It just inverted to a vertical form on your phone, right? Facebook looks a lot like this now. It's like content, 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 ad. LinkedIn, same thing. TikTok, same thing. Content, 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 ad. So your job when you're making social media is to try to make the content that's going to show up organically, much like a TV show would do. Social media is just TV. It just looks different. And we kind of have vilified it because we always vilify new technology as whatever. When TV was invented, you should go read about it. People hated it. They thought it was going to be the death of America and all the things and yada yada. We always repeat this cycle. So what is the difference in the algorithms here? So back in the day, we used to have a follower-based algorithm where essentially I followed you, you followed me. When you posted something, I would see it, and vice versa. In 2020, when TikTok came out, it basically brought short-form content in an interest-based environment to the masses. So that should say interest instead of intent. I'm sorry. But interest-based media means that if you like dogs, all they're going to do is show you 100 dog videos. So for me, it's like a lot of barbecue stuff, a lot of comedy content, a lot of business content, things that I like, it's surfacing to me all the time. And it doesn't care how many followers the creator has, it just cares if that piece of content resonates with people on the platform and keeps them on the platform long term. So how do we create content our ideal customer is actually interested in? And so I took the TV analogy and I just said, we're going to make the social media showrunner system. So you have to be a showrunner. You have to create your own show within your business. And that means you have two jobs. You're a producer and the talent. Or maybe you're lucky enough and you have a big enough team and you don't have to be the talent on screen. You can get somebody else to do it, but like somebody still has to do these two jobs in-house. Producer, unfortunately, is 95% of the work. That's where all the planning and post-production goes in. That's that job. Talent is like, I got my phone out, I recorded a video, it's done. Like, that's nothing from a time invested standpoint. So here's how the system works. We start with recon. We need to study what is working from other brands. I think it was Pablo Picasso that said you have to steal like an artist. You know, like you need to figure out what is already working on the platform and then track it. So like we have a spreadsheet we track where we're basically looking at other marketing agencies right now, and we're seeing like, what are you making? What are people watching? What are the total engagements, likes, saves, views, and length of the video, platform it's on? All of a sudden, we start to see a clearer roadmap to what kind of content we should be making versus like, again, wasting time throwing spaghetti at a wall, just seeing if we get lucky with one video. And the next thing you do is you need to figure out the type of style of content you want to make. You know, there's infinite types. These are some of my favorite. Frequently asked questions is probably the easiest thing that all of you could do today before you leave the building. You could literally just get your phone out, the one question you get asked more than anything, and answer that straight to camera, and then put that up on all of your social media channels. And all of a sudden now you have done the thing. You are now in business. A small little side note here. AI is huge and it's coming, and like I've seen AI actors now where it's people that are just generated. I've seen duplicates of people that are real people that are now talking. There's going to be a thing that happens with AI. I don't know what's going to happen. I can't really predict it. It's outside of my zone. What I know is that humans are still humans at the end of the day. And you can build a competitive moat around you and your business if you're the one that is the face of the brand. Because it's really hard for AI to compete with Mama Lyles. Like, they can't make another Mama Lyles. They can make a Mama Scott or a Mama whatever, but like there's only one of that. So, something to think about. The next thing we have to do is we have to plan our content out ahead of time. You know, if you're just like every day wake up and you're like, oh, what am I gonna put on the internet today? What am I gonna do? Like, it's overwhelming. You got too many other things you're already doing. Like, you're already a chief everything officer. Like, God forbid, you gotta also spur of the moment create something every single day. It's gonna be impossible. So you can do this, there's a million ways to do it, but essentially you just wanna know what you're posting, on what day, what content bucket it is in, and bonus points if you know what part of the process it's in, but it just gives you a little bit more clarity around what you're actually working on every single day. So now we got the plan, we're ready to go, it's time to do the fun part, but not really, because we're still not just jumping in, right? We wanna script things out, then we shoot it, then we edit it. So to script something out, there's two types of scripts that I really like using. There's either the outline version or there's a actual full-on script that I'm going to read it off a teleprompter. I like both versions. It's sort of up to you. Like if you're a better person that's kind of good at talking off the cuff, then maybe you go outline. If you're better with scripted, there's an app I have on my phone that literally has a teleprompter built into the camera and it just rolls through and I can read it. It's actually cool too because it recognizes my voice and so it paces the scroll based on where I'm at in the actual script. And so I'm not trying to rush or anything like that. So it still lets me go off script a little bit, which I like to do, but you're never going to know until you start to actually try this and see which one works best for you. So the elements of a great script. Every great script starts with a wave. And a wave is essentially, as I'm scrolling through YouTube or as I'm scrolling through Instagram Reels or TikTok or whatever, it's that first 2 to 3 seconds that I see on the screen before I decide if I'm going to scroll again. And your brain processes information so quickly. Who remembers the app Vine from back in the day? Anybody use that? Vine's whole thing was they did 6-second videos. There was people that would watch half of a second and then scroll to the next video. Like you're telling me you knew whether you'd like that video or not in half a second? Your brain, it just knows. And especially once you've consumed enough content on those platforms, all of a sudden you really know, like I'm either interested in this thing or not. And so these 4 elements kind of help us trigger their subconscious to stop the scroll just long enough for us to continue hooking them into the video. So what words are on the screen, what audio, what visual, and again, what emotion. I cannot hammer this home enough. If you get one thing out of today's talk, look at all of your marketing messaging, all of your websites, all of everything, and ask yourself, what emotion does this thing cause? Because if there's no emotion there, like it's just white noise in the background. And it may make you feel good because it's on the site or it's on your social media, but it's just noise. Like it has to trigger an emotion, otherwise it does not exist. So this is an example of a video I made where you have the words there on the screen, the visual is like actually what the website looked like in that moment, audio, and then the emotion there was I was going for anger because you should be mad that email marketing isn't complicated and mad that you don't know what it is yet, and now you're curious to figure out why. The next thing is story, and I'm not going to reinvent the wheel here. I think we had a great session on this yesterday. I would just follow this format that Dan laid out. It's great. And this is a skill, just like he talked about, you have to just constantly be practicing. Practice, 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 and eventually you'll get better at it. And then the last thing is have a clear call to action. So you either want somebody to comment on the video, send this video to a friend that has the same problem or would like it. You want them to go to your website sometimes and actually do something. Or you want to send them to watch another video. But you always want to end every video with a specific call to action. Because if you don't, they're just going to scroll and go to the next thing. People are busy, people are distracted, especially when they're just consuming content on these platforms. They're just moving on to the next thing. And unless you give them like we were in the military, you needed a million lines of instructions on how to do anything. Why? We need clarity. We need it. I get asked about gear a lot, like what camera do I need, what microphone do I need, do I need to hire a video company to come do stuff? Like, no. Like, gear doesn't matter. Like, this matters, gear does not matter. You got an iPhone, you got an Android phone, like as long as it shoots in HD and the microphone isn't messed up on it and you get good enough audio, like you have everything you need to start making content on the internet today. My first 50 or 60 videos I made on the internet were shot with like an iPhone 5 and edited on a MacBook Air on iMovie, which is about as cheap of gear as you can get at the time. And then we upgraded and it got better. And then eventually we just delegated it out and hired agencies to do it for us because I'm not a gear guy. I'm not a video. I didn't want to be a media company. I wanted to be a barbecue restaurant. So I got it big enough to where I could delegate it out to somebody else. So this is like somebody that wants to get into running and they're obsessed over shoes. Like literally you've never run a mile. Like just pick one and then you'll figure it out. And the last thing you want to consider here is that you have to kill your darlings. You're going to think everything you do is good. If you're me at least. It's not. And so you have to learn what to edit, which means if at the beginning of the segment you're talking, if the first sentence makes sense, everything in the middle makes sense, but then I can cut the middle and then the last sentence makes sense, everything in the middle should be cut out and you should just mash it all together. I have a really great analogy about a bear that I was going to put in today's talk, but I cut it. And now you'll never know about my bear analogy. You've done all the work, and now it's time to publish, right? It's time to actually get out there and make this thing happen. There's a bunch of different ways. Let me say this really quick. There's a bunch of different ways that you can reorient this stack, and this is kind of dependent on your business. Again, I'm trying to get you 80% of the way there. This is what I do and did, but it's kind of up to you. If you only want to post on Instagram, I was talking to somebody about that earlier today, that's fine. But you got to be active on one of these platforms. I like doing this because YouTube has 2 billion users. They're the second or third largest search engine depending on the month. Tons of traffic. And on top of that, it's an evergreen platform, which means once you have a video that registers and actually works, people will keep seeing that video over time. If you post the best thing in the world on Instagram or TikTok, it's gone in 3 days, and it's not coming back. So that's a hamster wheel that you got to be spinning all the time. Versus YouTube is great because you get a little more evergreen out of it. So here's an example of how we did this for High Beam recently. I was on a podcast here in Cincinnati called the Cincinnati Business Podcast. That got put up on YouTube. And then from there, that went out on the podcast feeds that they had, and we wrote a blog about it. So now I spent 1 hour making the content, but I'm getting distribution on all these different platforms. And then we broke it out into vertical videos around a minute long that if you're following me on Instagram or TikTok or LinkedIn, you will see one of these things come up. And so now, instead of like having to make unique content for 10,000 different platforms, I can kind of get efficient because I have to run my business and do other things and do one big piece and then chop it out to do all the other pieces. If you don't want to do YouTube or podcasting or the blog or anything like that, just pick one of these platforms and go all in on that. But again, the same system up here on top, recon style roadmap, that all works if you're just going on Instagram, for instance. So don't get overwhelmed. I'm just showing you everything that is available. You style this to work for your business. But what won't change is that you have to get attention and you have to cause an emotion no matter what. And then I have a scheduling app that I use. This is later.com. Essentially, I've been here this whole week and I've not done anything on social media, but I've had content go out every single day. Every 6 hours, more or less, is kind of how I do it 3 times a day. And this helps you get a little bit more efficient. I will say this, you need to leave a little bit of room for magic. So you've had all this plan and all this structure, but every once in a while something will happen or you'll read something or you'll be inspired and like all of a sudden you'll have a really good idea. And I was watching this one guy who's really good at marketing, and he talks about if he had a Super Bowl ad, he would essentially just say the name of his company for 30 straight seconds. And I thought that was kind of funny. And I was like, well, I don't have Super Bowl ad money, but I could do this on Facebook. And so I just literally put a hat on with the logo, put a sweatshirt on with a logo, because I don't have enough logos. And then I stood in front of a white wall and I said Lyles Barbecue over and over and over again for 30 straight seconds. And then I ended up writing some text on the side here to sort of make fun of myself in a weird meta way about it being an ad. And this ad wasn't planned, it was spur of the moment, but I had a system in place to be able to capitalize on ideas like this, drove hundreds of thousands of views and a ton of lift for our online ordering, which we were adopting back in the day. Like this was right when DoorDash was launching and Uber Eats and all that stuff, so we were running this to try to drive traffic to that, and it worked really, really well. So leave room for like inspiration to happen, and when you have those ideas, either write them down immediately and capture them, because otherwise they will disappear, or just go ahead and act on them right there in the moment and just get it out there and get it up. So the next thing is earned media. Earned media is that free exposure you get where other people talk about your business and not because you paid to play. And the reason why we want to get earned media is something called the halo theory. Essentially, we assign whatever value is with that thing that you're collaborating with to your business. So like every speaker that's been up here today, you've assigned DAV's value as an organization to them and vice versa. So if you came here today because you knew me, then you now like the DAV as much as you like me, if not more, right? Or vice versa. You like me somewhere in the range of how much you like the DAV. So we want to get on other people's platforms and leverage that attention. So we have to first figure out like who we should do that with. Once we figure out who we're going to identify, then we got to actually craft the story, which means like you guys know how much content you have to make every single day. Like it's overwhelming. Like news stations, for instance, have to put up 5 days a week of news every single day. So if you just write the story for them, all of a sudden it becomes a lot easier to put your business on their platform or whatever magazine for the industry you're in or whatever. It's all scalable to whatever situation you're in, but the same thing applies of like write the person's headline for them, do the job for them. It's much easier for them to say yes. That's where the craft the story piece comes in. And the who we pitch is, micro influencers, people in your space that have blogs. Maybe they have their own social media following. Maybe they have a podcast or a YouTube channel. Like get a list of those somewhere and write them down and get some sort of schedule for, again, writing the headline of why you should collaborate with them. Local TV is really easy to understand. Same with local radio and local news. Those guys just need content, and they love to feature local businesses, especially these 3 on the right. Love featuring local businesses, but you guys never reach out to them, or you don't follow up with them again and again and again, which is what we talk about here. You got to pitch and then follow up 3 or 4 times. Be annoying. You got to advertise. We're working like hell every day. Don't let it go to waste. Advertise. The next thing's paid media. That is a huge thing. It's what we do at Highbeam every single day. I can't teach you how to run Facebook ads in an hour-long course. I just can't. But the best thing I can give you here is to understand the difference in the platforms and why you might choose to run ads on one of these versus the other one. And the difference is intent versus demand. So intent-based is where somebody comes to Google and they are looking for a specific solution. They go on Amazon and they are looking for a specific thing. They're in that 5% of the pie graph and ready to buy right now. And you want your ad to show up when somebody's ready to buy. The downside is that you're not the first person to have that idea, especially in your industry, unless you're inventing something completely new, which means there's going to be a ton of other competition there. And so those are going to be very expensive clicks. But maybe your business model can support that, maybe not. Demand-based is where we can create interest on a different platform when people aren't actively looking for it. And that's really where, like, you'll be scrolling your Facebook feed and all of a sudden you'll see like a Black Rifle coffee ad or something like that. And you're like, oh, let me check that out and see what that's about. But they always start, it's like a content-based thing, and then they run an ad against it. So the reason why I love you to get really good at social media content first is that when the algorithm pushes something for free on social media, that's a great sign. That means they are letting you advertise your business for free, which they hate to do. Their whole job is to keep people on the platform as long as possible, and they want you business owners to pay to reach their audience. So if they're pushing something you do organically for free, that's great. What you can do is take that organic content, add a better CTA to the back end of it for your business, plug it into whatever platform you're running in the ad on, and run that as an ad. And so now you don't have to pay a ton of money to get a bunch of creative done for all these ads because you already have an in-house department that's pumping this stuff out all the time. And you already know with a reasonable level of certainty that it's going to actually work because it's already worked for free on organic social. And these are how the platforms break down. So it's Google, Bing, Amazon, that's intent-based. Demand is Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, YouTube. YouTube's a little bit on the intent-based side because it is a search engine, but not as much. And the last thing here is what I call mouth media, just so that it fit better. But it's essentially like, how do we get word of mouth moving on steroids? And why is word of mouth actually so powerful? Well, Nielsen did a study and they found that 92% of people trust their friends and family recommendations over any other form of advertising. I can make the best, most emotional driving ad in the world, but like it's going to pale in comparison to somebody being like, oh, Chandler ran ads for my company and it changed my life. Like that's a much more influential thing because that's somebody you already know and trust. And that trust, back to the halo effect, is immediately transferring on to me. So these 3 tips, they're going to put your word of mouth into overdrive. We implemented all 3 of these sort of by accident, eventually on purpose at the barbecue restaurant, and it was great. So the first thing is reviews. We all know online reviews are important, but like I don't think you realize how important they are. Yelp did a study a few years back, and they figured out that for each time a restaurant lost half a star, it was essentially a 20% decrease in bookings for their reservations. And what that means today is that if you don't have at least, like the gold standard is sort of 4.5 to 4.9 stars. Like 5-star brands, like we're all realists in the room and we're like, nobody's 5 stars. Like nobody's perfect. Like what's wrong with you? And usually that just means you're a newer brand that doesn't have a bunch of reviews. But if you have 1,000 reviews and it's a 5-star across the board, I'm assuming you paid for it. Like we're going to think something's wrong. So 4.5 to 4.9 is great. If you're 4 to 4.4, like you got some work to do. Because that difference in 4.4 and 4.5 is huge from a side. Again, we're emotional creatures, and we're going to think, what's wrong with the 4.4 thing? Why is this other one 4.6? You know, and volume of review matters, and like the number of platforms you get reviews on matter. Like there's a bunch of different ones out there, but you should definitely have a Google My Business page if you have a actual address that doesn't violate their terms. But that is the biggest thing you can do for free SEO is to have a bunch of Google reviews. Then we got referrals. So like, yeah, all of us in here, like when somebody comes up to me, inevitably they find out I was in the barbecue business, they'll be like, hey, what barbecue places should we go to in Cincinnati? And like in that moment, I'll bring it up. But like it's kind of random. And so like we have to figure out a way to get our best customers to turn into actual salespeople automatically and incentivize them to do it. And so what we figured out was that free sandwich cards were a great way to get people to come in and try the thing. But a great way to get them to come back was to give them a gift they could share with their friends. So the system we built was that they could have a free sandwich if they brought a friend in and they both got to redeem it at the same time. And it worked. It was crazy how well that worked. It was valuable, it was frictionless, and it was repeatable. And like if you have those 3 elements, you have a really great referral system that people will go out and use for you for free. And then finally is the magic moments here. This is called the Magic Castle. It's out on the West Coast, and it's like a renovated apartment complex, but it's one of the top-rated hotels in the area for one really dumb reason. And if you're shaking your head yes already, you know what the dumb reason is. This little red phone, that's like an old school phone that I'm surprised this kid knows how to use with cell phones. He picks it up, somebody answers, and he goes, "I would like a popsicle, please." Grape. And then somebody in a full like butler's outfit and a silver tray shows up with a purple popsicle and hands it to him. It's so dumb, but kids love it. And they tell everybody about it, and it's mentioned in the reviews so many different times. It caused an emotion, it was unique. All of a sudden I had an interesting story to tell that other people that just went to a Hilton don't have to tell. And now you're gonna go out of your way to like, yeah, if it makes sense for the budget, I'm gonna pick this place over Marriott or whatever the other options are. One thing we did at the restaurant, like we had a smoked brisket candle made and a banana pudding candle made, which is objectively gross, I get it. Not gonna show up at Bath & Body Works anytime soon, but it was different and it was weird and it was interesting. And I had these things on the shelf to sell, but really they were just there to be weird and looked at. And it was like, oh, that's the place that sells brisket candles, because nobody else sold brisket candles. And then I'd give them away to like our best customers because I wanted them to be incentivized to talk about us when somebody inevitably sees that they have a brisket candle on their wall. Be like, why do you have a brisket candle, you freak? Good, I want you to be a freak for the brand. So we've captured all that attention, now we gotta funnel them somewhere. So we start with the website, right? Like we all have websites in the room or we're in the process of building them from some of the conversations I had earlier. But like the website's your playground. Like this is where you get customers for the most part. Like this is where they learn more about you. And the websites are complicated. We can't go super into it, but I'll give you a couple things. Your website needs to be like IKEA, you know, and if you're unfortunate enough to get trapped in one of these things, I feel bad for you. Because it looks like this. It's like a bad military op. There's one way in and one way out. And you don't get to leave. Like you either follow this path or they arrest you, I'm pretty sure, and put you in Swedish meatball jail. But when you design your website, too many of you guys have built websites that look like choose your own adventure pages. And why would you do that? You spent all that effort on the top of the funnel to get them to the site, and now they're there. Send them where you want them to go. When you look at our site, it's very clear. I want you to book an audit call, I grow brands, I've grown them for these brands, book an audit call. And the reason we do it this way is because you only have 7 seconds to capture someone's attention above the fold, which is the landing page you land on, both mobile and desktop. And you gotta be optimized for both. 7 seconds, it's super clear. I got a lot more I can tell you about marketing. I've been up here rambling about it for 45 minutes. But I've got 3 words in bold. And I got one job I want you to do. I want you to book an audit. Can I tell what you do? Can I tell who you do it for? And is my next step clear? And if you can't say yes to all 3 of these things, I would redesign my website tonight. The other thing on your website is to have a free offer. So like a lot of people will come to your site and they're not ready to do business with you again, right? Or not ready to do business with you for the first time. So you need some sort of exchange with them that they're gonna give their email address to you. So on the barbecue restaurant website, we used to give away a free pulled pork sandwich if you joined our email list. It cost me like $1.15 in food cost. And I knew that if somebody came in and redeemed that sandwich card, there was a 50% chance they would come back again. And if I got them back 2 times, there's a really good chance I could get them back again and again and again and again. All for $1. You know, but like getting people onto your email list is the most important thing you could be doing even today in a world where everybody wants to talk about AI and TikTok and all the things. It's still the email list. Like it's still the best way to get into somebody's head. And then what emails do we actually send? The first thing I'd set up is some sort of drip campaign. This is like a very simple example of one where it's like you subscribe to the email list, you get a welcome email. We'll first deliver whatever the promise is. And a little side note here, I've seen a lot of websites that come up and they'll say like, join our email list, get 15% off. Like I personally would never discount my products or services because all of a sudden that anchors your price point at that new discounted rate. And unless you're Walmart or Dollar General or a discount brand where you're trying to be known for that, it's just not gonna be a good, I would rather you give away, like let's say your average order value is $100. I'd rather you give somebody a $20 digital gift card for joining your email list because now you're a good guy or a good girl that gave somebody a present. And that's awesome. We love to be friends with people that give us presents. Discounts means it's like transactional. But a drip campaign, and you could use Klaviyo, you can use Constant Contact. There's a bunch of different email service providers you can set this stuff up in. And it's a cool thing because like it's a one-time work, and then it just runs automatically in the background every single time somebody signs up for your email list. The other thing takes a little bit more work, but it's really not that difficult, because if you're making all that other content that we talked about on social media, it's pretty easy to just take your favorite piece from the previous week and rewrite it for an email newsletter. So like if you guys join the Highbeam email newsletter, you'll see, if you're following me on social, you'll see me write something on LinkedIn, and then if I really wrote something I really thought would be valuable to the email list, I'll just rewrite it for email in a slightly different context. But you could literally just copy and paste whatever you wrote into the email list, and it would still work out well. The whole point of an email newsletter is not to sell stuff. It is to stay top of mind with people that you want to do business with. Because when they're, again, the whole point of marketing, when you're ready to do business with me, I want to be the first option you pick. Or at least give me an at-bat. Maybe I don't close, but that's a sales problem. But like marketing did its job, we got the at-bat. So I rambled a lot, and I think we have like 2 or 3 minutes for questions, but this is my best shot. And I tried to generalize it as much as possible. You all have very unique, cool businesses, and I'll be around tonight and tomorrow, and I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have. Thank y'all.